Jai Hind दोस्तों, let's begin the daily news analysis of the Hindu. In the first page, there is an article called "The People Are Free to Choose Religion." That is, it is said by the Supreme Court. Here, the Supreme Court, that is, the bench led by Justice Rohington F. Nariman, said that the people have right under the Constitution to profess, practice, and propagate the religion. He also stressed that the right to the religion under the Article 25 of the Constitution, that is, free to process, practice, and propagate the religion and subject to the public order, morality, and health. He also said that the religion faith is a part of fundamental right to privacy. From this article, we will try to elaborate what what is there under the Article 25. Here, the Article 25 says that all people are equally entitled to freedom of conscience and right to freely profess, practice, and propagate the religion. Here, the freedom of conscience means the inner freedom of individual to mold his relation with the God or a creators. Next, right to profess, that is the declaration of one's religion, belief, and faith openly and freely. Right to practice, that is anyone can perform the religious worship, rituals, ceremonies, and exhibition of the beliefs and ideas. And lastly, right to propagate. Here, the transmission, dissemination of one's religious belief to another or exposition of tenets of one's religion. But it does not include right to convert another person to one's own religion forcefully. Here, in this article, that is Article 25, it clearly mentions that it doesn't support forced conversible of religion. Here also, it also states that here Article 25 covers not only the religious belief but also religious practices also. Here, the term Article 25 also contains two explanations. That is, wearing and carrying of kirpan is also included in the profession of the Sikh religion. Here, the Hindu in this context includes Sikh, Jains, and Buddhist. So, this is a brief detail regarding the Article 25. The next article is regarding the relationship with the India and Russia. Here, the article in this article tries to stress regarding the recent bilateral discussion between India and Russia carried out recently in the New Delhi. Here, the both sides appear to make progress on strategic cooperation, cooperation in energy, nuclear and space sector, and on talks on free trade agreement with Eurasian Economic Union. Here, the article tries to stress that here, as India is getting closer to the United Nations, that is Western nation, because of that, because of that, the Russia is getting closer to the China as well as Pakistan. Here, we'll try to understand what are the importance of China for India. For the first, balancing the China, that is in the Asian continent, the dominance of the China is much larger when compared to the India. So, in order to counter it, India needs the support of major power in the world, that is Russia. So, the Chinese aggression in the eastern Ladakh and also in the northeastern states says that the support of Russia is capable to contribute to diffuse the tension with the China. Also, Russia organized trilateral meeting among the foreign ministries, that is India, Russia, and China, following deadly clashes in the Galwan Valley in the disputed territory of Ladakh. In the next, that is the emergence of the new sector of economic engagement. Here, that is as apart from the traditional area of cooperation, that is import and export of weapons, nuclear energy, diamond, and other new sectors of economic engagement have emerged recently, like agro industries, highly technological transfer, including that is robotics, nanotechnology, or biotech. Here, the India's footprint in the Russia's Far East, that is the recent economic summit in Vladivostok, has carried, and here in that region, that is the eastern part of the Russia, which is least developed when compared to the western part. Here, in eastern part, that is the Vladivostok, India has been a major player of investment in the eastern Russia. Here, the next is the Russia has also a major role in countering the terrorism. India and Russia are working close to gap on the Afghanistan and are calling for early finalization of comprehensive convention on international terrorism. At last, that is support at multilateral forum. Russia always supports India's candidacy for permanent membership in the United Nations, and also in United Nations Security Council. Russia puts up the veto power in the meeting if any nation comes against the India. For example, if Pakistan brings any order or any resolution in the United Nations Security Council against India, then Russia uses its veto power to defame it, and directly or indirectly helps India to in maintain the power in the United Nations Security Council. Next, what are the importance of India for Russia? Here, first is balancing, same, that is the balancing China. Russia and China are currently in quasi-aligned setup. That is, Russia repeatedly reiterating that it does not see itself as anybody's junior partner. Also, there has been a border dispute between Russia and China. Next is reviving the Eurasian Economic Union. The Russia seeks to leverage India's soft power to gain the legitimacy in the success of Eurasian Economic Union and also re-establish its hegemony as it existed during the Cold War. Now we will see what are the main challenges between the relation between India and Russia. That is, first, India going the West. That is, the article is trying to stress is that India day by day getting closer to the United Nations and also other Western nations, which may hamper the relation with Russia. And also, Russia is moving towards the east. Here, the Western countries have imposed multiple sanctions, economic sanctions towards Russia after the annexation of Crimea. Because of that, Russia is trying its effort to revive up its own plan, that is to concentrate particularly on the eastern nation. And the most distinct result that have recently made by the Russia is to improve the relation with the Pakistan as well as China, and including Turkey, Iran. Russia's pivot to the east policy is not in synergy with that of US. Subsequently, the relation between India and Russia is suffering. So, from this article, we can say that the bilateral relation with India's with multi-nation, that is USA and other nation, is hampering the past allies, that is Russia. Because of that, Russia recently conducted a military exercise with the Pakistan for the first time in the history. That is really a concern for India. So India has to maintain a balancing of relation between United Nations as well as Russia. In the next article, here the article says regarding the refugee problem. So the author that is trying to say that India's policies on refugees as well as what are the consequences of not signing the refugees and what is the reason for not signing the Refugee Act 1951. Here, the author says that the refugee flow in India are unlikely to end anytime soon, as given in geopolitical, economical, ethnic, and religious context. Also, there is a little doubt that illegal immigration is a threat to the socio-political fabric of any nation, including India, with the potential security implication. Here, there is an ambiguity in the framework of the refugee in Indian administration. That is, the main reason why our policies towards illegal immigrants and the refugees is confused is because, as per the Indian law, both the categories of the people are viewed as one and the same and are covered under the Foreign Act 1946. Here, the foreigner is defined as, or it means as a person who is not a citizen of India. Needless to say that there are fundamental differences between illegal immigrants as well as refugees. India is not a part of 1951 Refugee Convention because the refugee crisis arising from the Syrian conflict is the only latest reminder of the fact that India remains one of the few liberal democracies that have not signed the convention. The refugee crisis may be caused by a number of reasons. First, it can be war, as we have seen in the 1971 Bangladesh, as well as currently we are seeing in Syria. Next is the domestic conflict, that is in the past we have seen in the Tibet, and now currently we are seeing in Myanmar, that is Rohingyas crisis. The natural disaster, that is famine. Next, environmental displacement, human trafficking, and this and in the coming year, I think climate change and global warming can also a potential reason for the refugees. India, as I have said, India has neither signed 1951 United Nations Refugee Convention nor its protocol, that is 1967. However, India continues to host a large population of refugees, that is, refugees from Iran, um, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bhutan, Nepal, Myanmar, Bangladesh, and many other nations. Currently, India is hosting the refugees. Also, why India won't join this convention of this protocol? That is what may be the reason. So, officially, it is not seen what is the reason, but the reason are chiefly related to the security. As the borders in the South Asia are extremely porous when compared to the Western nation, and also any conflict can result in the mass movement of the people. And this will have a two result. That is, first, there will be a strain on local infrastructure and resources in the country that are poorly equipped to deal with the sudden spike in the population. Also, here the author says that in respect to the legal and moral complexity, the New Delhi has been one of the largest recipient of the refugees in the world, in spite of not signing it, as I have mentioned it. But the definition of refugees in 1951 convention only pertains to the violation of civil and political right, but not on economic rights of an individual. If the violation of economic rights are to be included in the definition of the refugee, then it would clearly pose a major burden on the developed nation. For example, the least developed nation, that is underdeveloped or and all that, for example, you can take the Syria as well as Sudan. If the economic rights violation is added in the refugee, then major chunk of population will be moving from underdeveloped and least developed nation to the more developed nation, that is Western and United Nation. So that may hamper the demographic dividend as well as the overall uh, pattern of that particular nation which immigrants the refugees. Also, a scholar, that is B.S. Chimney, has argued that India should not accede to the 1951 convention at a time when the North is violating its both leader and spirit. Here, with the current laws like the CAA, which the government has brought it, but the CAA has no answer to this problem, because primarily it is deeply in discriminatory nature, as author is mentioning, and also the CAA is an act in refugees avoidance but not refugees protection. What is perhaps equally important is that refugee that is domestic refugee law should allow for temporary shelter and also work permit for the refugees. Also, the author stresses for India to come up with the domestic law, which has to be clearly defining who are the illegal immigrants as well as the refugees, and based on that, proper treatment as well as facilities has to be provided to that particular refugees. Also, the New Delhi must also make a distinction between the temporary migrant workers, illegal migrant workers, and refugees. What I have said earlier, that author is trying to mention it in this article by making a separate domestic law in India. So this is the overall uh, news regarding the refugees problem, what the challenges India is facing, and also when compared to the globe, what are the major problems regarding that. The next article is regarding the direct tax. That is, has been an increase in the direct tax, that is of 5%. First, we'll try to understand what is a tax. Next, we'll broadly discuss what are the direct tax and indirect tax. First, the tax are primarily there are one of these are one of the primary source of income for the government, through which it fulfills various projects and initiatives. For example, a person pays a tax based on his income, on his annual income, and that amount will be utilized by the government for development purpose, like construction of roads, like street lights, and multiple things. So here the taxes can be classified into two types, that is the direct tax and indirect tax. The direct tax can be defined as the tax that is paid directly by an individual or an organization to the imposing entity. Here, the Central Board of Direct Tax deals with this matter. Here, in layman language, we can say that a government employees or any individual who earns, like for example, if he earns like 5 lakh per annum, then he has to pay around 2.5% of his income to the government as a direct tax. So it can be termed as direct tax. And annually, that is, the government set up the different percentage based on the income slab. Like um, from 0 to 5 lakh, there is no taxation. From 5 to 10 lakhs, there is a particular set, that is 5%, 10%, 20% of taxation will be applied on the income. The next is indirect tax. Indirect tax is nothing but it is applicable to every person, and it is like same to every person, whether it is rich or poor. Here, direct tax, the richer person will be paying more taxes and poorer person will be paying less taxes or no taxes. But in indirect taxes, every person pays the same amount of taxes. For example, if you purchase any item, like if you purchase soap, then you are paying the price, for example, 20 rupees. That includes all the indirect taxes. So here the indirect tax is applicable to all person. And for example, we can say that the value added tax and the recently the government which brought, that is goods and service tax, is also one of the indirect taxes. The next is the forex reserve. The article says that the forex reserve drops again. That is, there is a dip of $2.4 billion. Here, first we'll try to understand what is the forex reserve. The foreign exchange reserve is also known as forex reserve, is an asset held on reserve by the central bank in India, that is RBI, in foreign currencies, which may include bonds, treasury bills, and other government securities. Most of the forex reserve will be maintained in the US dollar, and it ensures that the central bank has to back up funds if the national currency rapidly devalues. Here in India, the forex reserve includes the foreign currency assets, the government, that is the gold, the special drawing rights, and also the reserve position in the International Monetary Fund. Here, the article says that currently the India's forex reserve is $576.869, that is billion dollar. And in the previous week, that is on March 26th, the reserve has decreased by 2.9 billion, that is to $579 billion. So the article also specifically says that the gold reserves have been dropped to 884 millions to 34 billion as per the RBI data. The special drawing rights with IMF has dipped by $4 million to $1.486 billion. So first you have to understand from this article, first try to understand what is the forex reserve. Just in simple language, RBI stores the foreign dollars, that is US dollars, gold, and other bonds as a backup to the economy of India. If the Indian rupee devalues, then by means of forex reserve, it revalues its money and standard in the economy. So this is the today's daily news analysis. Thank you.
जोश है हमें जान है और उमंगे है दिल में जवान, क्या कहे तुमसे दोस्तों कि अब तो जाना है हमको कहाँ। मैं उनको रोज